boss.
All right, I can deal with that. We're good to go. Good evening, everyone. We'll call to the meeting of Tuesday, April 4th to order. We're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Leslie, can we have a roll call, please?
Stephen Richardson.
Here.
Rhonda Wasson.
Present.
Renee Adley.
Here.
Mindy Walters. Carl Ferguson.
Here.
Paul Gonzalez.
Here.
Dan Leonard.
Here. And we'll check in on Mindy if we heard from her.
She is in California, I believe, with her daughter. Was at Hockey
Just got
Nationals.
back just now.
Just returning.
Okay, gotcha. Yes. No worries.
Third in the nation.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic.
It is fantastic.
Wow. All right, that being the case, up number 4 on the agenda here is a review for conflict of interest. Anyone have anything to declare? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda of Tuesday, April 4th, 2023.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Recommended by Paul, seconded by Rhonda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Agenda's approved. Thank you. Now on to number 5, approval of the meeting minutes from March 7th, 2023. Hearing no discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the meeting minutes of March 7th, 2023, regular meeting for the East Bay Charter Township Planning Commission.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. We've got a motion by Rhonda, second by Stephen for approval of March 7, 2023 regular meeting minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. On to the agenda item number 6. This is a time for public comment. Anything that's not on the agenda, feel free to come up and address the lectern with your name and address. Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll keep on cruising. Number 7 is under correspondence. Claire, can you kind of kick us off? It looks like we've got a few things on our desk.
Yeah, there was 2 items received, one from Heather Smith of the Watershed Center related to the Elmbrook sketch plan review, and another one from a resident related to the Victoria Farms, former Hayfield Manors.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any questions of staff on any of the correspondence?
And then one additional, this Mansfield traffic assessment came in late this afternoon as well.
Okay, I did see that. Is that something we want to talk about on the agenda, or is this food for
This will
thought
be
for the
part-
next meeting?
This will be discussed during that agenda item.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Okay. Any other questions of staff? Okay, we'll move on to reports. I know Mindy's not here. Is there any updates from the Township Board that we need to be aware of? All right,
There's a special meeting tomorrow night on short-term rentals.
okay. Good feedback, and Paul will move on to ZBA.
Yeah, last meeting, we approved a house rebuild on Spider Lake.
Okay. And last but not least, planning and zoning. Leslie or Claire, have anything to update?
You'll see there was an email sent out from Beth on the Michigan Townships Association. There's an online learning portal, so there's a ton of educational opportunities, and all board and commission members are, as association through the township, are members. So I would encourage you to take a look at those training opportunities. We are also, I think I mentioned previously, we're scheduling a training that is going to be hosted here at East Bay Township, and we're opening it up to all of Grand Traverse County. We had a date, it was in April. It's looking like, unfortunately, because of special meetings and some other scheduling challenges, it's probably going to get moved to May. So I will keep you apprised of that date, but we're looking definitely for the spring to host a training. And then also just wanted to mention the 3-mile trail planning project. There's going to be a public open house. That's going to be early May, and exact date to be determined, but we'll send out the date for that as well. We've been making some good progress on the trail alignment and taking a look at some of the conceptual design stuff with the consultants.
Sounds good. Any questions of staff? Okay, thank you for that. Hearing none, we'll move on to business for the Planning Commission under agenda number 9. We'll start with letter A, the sketch plan review, Elmbrook Phase 1. And this is an introduction and discussion from the applicant. And maybe to kick it off, Doug, are you going to introduce or? Okay, sounds good.
I'm Joe Lucrecchio with Elmbrook Bayview TC LLC. You all know Doug. We're here to talk about our conceptual site plan for the first phase of the Elmbrook residential. But before I do that, I wanted to give you an update on Bayview and where we're at with that. Based on our current completion status, we're looking at a late August completion date for the entire project. Certainly vertical construction will be done by then. If there's some last-minute site work to be done and final landscaping and some, green space grading, things like that, that'll be taking place. But based on where we're at right now with, we have out of 34 total foundations, total separate type of buildings, 32 of them are in the ground. So, in some form of completion. And so we're pretty confident that August date is very achievable. We started Bayview on August 20th of 2021. So that'll mean we completed the project in approximately 2 years. And so it's a testament to a lot of great subcontractors, the ability to work through the winter. These last 2 winters have been pretty nice. Last year, not as nice as this one, but it wasn't, this year hasn't been nearly as wet and nasty as last year was. So we've been able to keep on moving. And let me just say, I don't see necessarily anybody from Town Line Road, but we've worked very closely with the neighbors on Town Line, and if somebody's here, I think they can attest to any issues that have been raised to us, hassles with any sort of construction and interference with them. We've addressed them and been really good in responding to them. So we certainly appreciate that. Our leasing has gone very well, and as of today, we have 160 signed leases out of the 216 total units. And so in the process, we've learned a lot about the market, and the product we're proposing for this first phase of Elmbrook is a reflection and combination of, all of our years of experience, but also what we've learned with local knowledge with Bayview and what people really want. And so this next phase is, accesses off Town Line and then the golf course service road. It's in the MDR area that was approved as part of the conditional rezoning. And it's 182 units is what's proposed on 38 acres. It's slightly less than the 5 per acre approved with the MDR for this portion of the property. As you recall, this portion was HDR, the high-density res. There's approximately 35 acres up in here, and the rest was 5 to the acre. Just some general things about the plan. There's a lot of open space, as you can see from the plan itself. I mean, as part of our final site plan approval, or the next step in the site plan approval process, we'll have actual calcs for open space, but there's a lot of open space. There's going to be sidewalks on one side of the road at minimum, just like we did with the Bayview phase. There's not a clubhouse planned for this particular phase, but there will ultimately be when we move on through the next phases, and we will build a bigger, kind of all-inclusive clubhouse for the project. Now, you can see, we do not affect Elmbrook Golf Course at all here. The 18-hole golf course, as it is, will stay intact. And really, this is going to take 3 years, 2 years, 3 years. I mean, we're not touching the golf course now. And our plans right now, we've done a lot of planning since we got the conditional approval, year and 3/4 or whatever. We've actually done a lot of planning. We've been working on continued concepts with, do we keep golf? How much golf do we keep? How many units do we ultimately want? How many is too many? For sale, for rent, whatever. We've really been working the plans, and everything that we've done to this point has had some form of golf left. Now, when I say some form of golf, it will be golf. It's just a question of, 9 holes. A new wave in the industry is 12-hole golf courses. We have the room south of the 66 here to add more golf holes, which this portion of the land is very, very difficult. The topo is crazy back there. We'll make for a tough spot to develop, but some great golf holes. So we've really explored concept plans. We've hired a local golf course guy that's really worldwide renowned, Renaissance Golf. And so we've been working closely with them about what we're going to do going forward. But we appreciated and enjoyed our first year of operating Elmbrook. And so right now, we are just thinking, sit tight, do this, 2, 3 more years for sure as Elmbrook as it is, and we continue to improve. We're buying new equipment, we're making more improvements to the clubhouse, we're making more improvements to the golf course. So anyway, that's the general direction at this point. These units are 2 different style duplex units. There's ranch style and then 2-story style side by side. So the ranch style side by side, the 2-story style side by side. The ranches are 2-bedroom, 2-bath with the option for a 3rd bed and bath in the basement. Now, what we've learned all too well at Bayview is we should have built more basements. We had the opportunity with the grades and everything else, but we were paranoid not knowing, how, spending the extra money and everything else, and did it make sense, and were we going to overdo it in the market? In retrospect, should have done a lot more because they are very, very popular. And so these units, most, if not all, will have a basement. And whether it's a storage area or it's a finished basement, we are going to have one form or the other. And we'll leave that up to the resident coming in, but it's a really popular option to have that extra bedroom, that extra bath, or storage. So the majority of these are going to have basements for sure. Again, the ranches are 2-bedroom, 2-bath with a 3rd bedroom, 3rd bath option in the basement. The 2-story units are 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath standard, and then you could get up to a 4-bedroom with the finished basement. A couple of general notes. We've started our traffic study. We have a traffic impact study that we're doing. We've retained Fishbeck to do so. They've been in contact with the Road Commission about this. I've spoken with Claire about, the different standard and criteria, and I think Fishbeck actually talked to you as well. So we are doing a traffic impact study. And so when we come back with more detail, we'll have all that information. So really, that's the overview. And we like this product. We like what we've learned at Bayview about this product, and we're excited to get into this. So that's it, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Thanks. Any questions of the applicant?
Would these be primarily for rent or for sale?
Primarily, right now, our direction is rent, just because of the market conditions, interest rates, home buying capabilities, and our experience at Bayview. Honestly, we believe that, the rental market is still underserved, and we feel like this is a really unique opportunity with units fronting on a golf course, and so the direction right now is for rentals.
I know in some of the correspondence that we received, it was discussed about the amount of vegetation or doing some type of preservation with what's on site. That's just, feedback that we've gotten. Within the proposal, I know it's very early, but just, can you talk to or speak to some of that stormwater management or things that you could do to, kind of retain what's there, or some creative ways to kind of manage that?
And I did mention this to Claire, we will endeavor to keep as many trees as possible. We don't want to go in and clear cut necessarily. We have to work with the lay of the land, number one, and that's, topo's going to drive a lot here, because we got some severe topo up here. We're going to be kind of riding the ridges, if you will, and as we taper down and get into other areas, we're going to be leaving those alone. So that'll create their own natural vegetation buffers or whatever. But we do not want to just go in and clear cut the thing. So we'll leave as many trees as possible. Stormwater management, we've got pond opportunities throughout that we didn't necessarily identify yet, just because we don't have the level of engineering yet. We've got basic engineering, so we know, the site functions, and we know how the sewer and water will work essentially, but some of the stormwater detention may be done on the golf course. We don't know, but I hear you loud and clear, and we understand.
Yeah, just look, you can see it from the aerial, what you were working with before, it's kind of like no holds bar. It's a vacant, pretty much Eldridge farm.
There was nothing there, baby.
Right, and in this case, you're right in the heart of what is there, and I know there's a lot of value in kind of working with the land, but also, I know you're going to replant, you'll have a full landscape plan for, the future, I understand that, but
Yeah,
just
well,
FYI.
And I will tell you that in Bayview, there were situations, like along town line, and actually where our main pond is, right up in here, in our basin number 1, this tree right here was in the middle of the pond. And I had Mansfield and Molon redirect and save that tree, because it's such a beautiful specimen tree, and you drive down, it's like an identifier when you hit Bayview. And so whenever that opportunity presents itself, we stay away from them. There was the same thing going along the golf course service road with some of the ones that, were supposed to be taken out, and we left them alone. So, we don't like to do that.
And I think that this has been run with public water.
Yes,
Is there public sewer on
There
there
is.
as well?
Yes.
So this will be an extension of that?
Yes.
Existing line? Okay, got it. And does that run along town line, or does it run through the
It
center?
comes Long Hammond, downtown line, through the center of the project, basically to this corner. Right
Okay,
here. And then the sanitary lift station is right here. The force main goes east along Hammond up to the system up here.
got it. What about utility easements for power? I'm just being nosy now, but where are you guys at with that, as far as running it with your existing? I haven't gone through the site in a little while, but
So
Just curious.
Cherryland is doing everything. We have, all the easements in place for them, for DTE gas. We have gas, along, we extended the gas out, so, when we let the town line, at least these neighbors certainly know that if they wanted to tie in, to contact DTE, and they can do so, and
sure,
so.
okay. I like the idea of the multi, it's not just all going to look the same. I could appreciate that for sure. And when you say two-story side-by-sides, I'm kind of thinking of like brownstones or row homes, if you will, in terms of a design. I think in the future, I don't expect to see like finalized elevations of them, but if you could provide examples of that, I think that'd be very helpful for us, just to get a feel and where they're going to differentiate throughout the site itself.
Right.
And-
The ranches, sorry to interrupt you, Dan.
No, you're good.
Ranches are the Bayview style that we have right now.
Okay.
So you get a good feel for those just by, if you went through there. And then there's 2 stories, a different product we're bringing.
Okay, nice. Okay. Yes, go ahead, Claire.
So I just wanted to bring up the fact that our current zoning ordinance doesn't allow public golf courses in moderate density residential or high density residential. So as this development moves forward, once the site, development begins, then Elmbrook would become a legal non-conforming golf course, which is fine, but can't expand, can't do any kind of improvements to the club building, can't really do any improvements or add to the existing greens. And so I was just curious what the planning commission's thoughts were on, is there a reason that we only allow golf or public golf in low-density residential? Would it be appropriate in some instances in kind of more suburban-style development in moderate density or high-density residential? So I just wanted to bring that up as a potential zoning amendment, because if it's strictly limited to low-density residential, then there's going to be some ramifications for this development, and if they're looking to preserve public golf on that site. So we don't want to make a zoning amendment just for one development, but I could see other situations where kind of a more suburban-style development would be appropriate for some golf open to the public.
Well, maybe this is a good time to talk through that, because I did read through the conditional rezoning request in here as well. I mean, and I got to believe that was probably a part of that offering, because that to me feels like a decent way to envelop the existing use in with the new.
Right.
Without having to change our whole zoning code. So I can appreciate that angle or that thought pattern, if that's what it was intended to do.
It would be a zoning amendment that would be required. If the planning commission was, interested in allowing golf in moderate density and high density in the future, it would require a zoning amendment.
So I just to, again, be clear, so this conditional rezoning does not take into account the adjacent public land then, or the
Right.
golf course
Right, it
territory? It's only for
basically-
the unit development parcels?
Yep, the assumption in approving the conditional rezoning was that golf open to the public would be phased out over time.
Okay.
And so, I mean, perhaps that would be the case, but I think there's also an opportunity to preserve golf open to the public if that was, if that was in.
And certainly, if it was permitted in MDR and HDR, it would give us a lot more flexibility and motivation, if you will, to keep golf, whether, like I said, 9, 12, 18, whatever, and blend that with development. Otherwise, if it's problematic and we're, forced to be a non-conforming use or for whatever time and we can't do improvements, then our inclination's probably going to be, okay, well, let's go develop,
Right.
right? And just stick with the higher, so
Any
it
thoughts?
just provides flexibility.
Yeah. Any thoughts
Yeah.
from anybody else on that one?
I mean, I'm very supportive of being flexible. I'm just trying to think, are there downsides, not with this development, but in the future, if we make a zoning amendment to allow that in moderate density residential? I don't think that I can think of, but I'd want to think about it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I like the approach of, allowing certain number of uses in low-density residential, then increasing the number in, as the intensity increases, you're increasing the uses that are permitted. So I don't personally see a downside to having a less intensive use when we're looking at, various residential districts.
I think we have to be clear as to what we would allow, because otherwise you can see somebody having a big piece of,
Go blue.
Gotta be a Wolverine. Only Wolverine would do something like that. Unreal.
you get that urge to march around. But anyway, as I was going to say, I could see starting out with the idea of the golf, and then all of a sudden we wind up with somebody wanting to have a go-kart track or something of that, so.
I think that would be stipulated, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying we have to be very careful
Yeah.
as to what the optionality is, but other than that, I agree with Carl, I'm more in favor of something less flexibility.
I think we should offer the flexibility, because to his point, otherwise, it's going to be developed. And it's beautiful space there.
What does timing look like for us? Because, and more importantly, I should say, I kind of want to go back to you and say, what are you looking at in terms of development phase, time-wise? Because I know you're getting close, August, you'll be wrapped up.
There he is. I was just looking for him. Doug's got to lay this whole thing out from an engineering standpoint. We'd have to submit for permits. There's really very little likelihood that we're getting in the ground before next spring. Would you agree? Yeah. The only thing possible is some clearing and grading. Right? So that would
Okay.
be it.
And that's if the supply and demand doesn't change or get better or worse, with pipe and these kind of things too. It's a big deal out there right now. Pipe is 10 months out.
Right, because I'm just thinking through, is this something that we could consider lumping into the ordinance rewrite as a component of that? Because we're looking at probably like a fall, I would imagine, draft coming out, and then
Yeah, I
in
think,
theory,
I think
approval.
it would be appropriate to lump this into the total ordinance update with us kind of keeping an eye on things. And it's a pretty easy text amendment if we decide that the timing's not going to work out, but otherwise we'll plan to just include it in the ordinance
Yeah.
update.
Okay. But that won't necessarily affect this project before us right now?
Right.
Right? Okay. So, food for thought, it's a good point to get on the table anyway right now, I think, for everyone, so thank you for that. Any other feedback for the applicant?
So looking at Heather's comments from the watershed, and the trees, and you can see the density of the trees, obviously, there. Is there an opportunity to potentially request a certain percentage of tree coverage in a certain area to be either preserved or replanted? I don't know.
So our ordinance right now requires 25% of the total site to be open space, and 30% of that 25%, a third needs to be woody vegetation.
Okay.
However, we're updating our zoning ordinance, and so we're looking at updated landscaping standards that are a lot more specific about species type. And we also, as a part of this tree preservation subcommittee process that we went through like a year and a half ago, there was recommendations that came out of that will be integrated into the updated ordinance draft, and that really focused on incentives for tree preservation. So if, identifying heritage tree of like a certain diameter, a certain, like certain species, certain size, providing incentives for preserving those and really trying to make a concerted effort to have some benefits to the developer if those can be preserved. And so I think that you'll see updated standards that will have more tree preservation provisions that can give the planning commission more teeth to
Thank you.
to look at those, but right now it's a little bit vague in
Yes.
terms of.
Thank you.
Any other specific questions for us?
No, I don't think so. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Much.
Thanks for the intro. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So moving on, next on the docket is site plan review 3-23, Hayfield Manors. This is a residential cluster site condo for Victoria Farms, and this one I'd like to kick it off with Claire, maybe to kind of set the table and talk
Okay.
through the project before us.
So I think the biggest news is just that the project changed names. It's Victoria Farms now. And not to be confused with Victoria Place, which was the last site condo that was reviewed. But you'll see in the cover page in the packet, that's on page 18 of the packet, I went through and just tried to summarize kind of what the planning commission was looking for in terms of next steps for the Victoria Farms development. So they're looking for the protective covenants and deed restrictions, master deed, as well as the private road maintenance agreement and private road hold harmless agreement. So all of that was reviewed by our legal counsel. They went back and forth, made a few edits, but right now that's in good condition, and our attorney is happy with all of that. The review from Metro Fire, so this was approved by Metro Fire. They signed off on the site plan for that. Grand Traverse, the Grand Traverse County Health Department did the preliminary review and was satisfied from a septic, well and septic standpoint. And then the soil erosion sedimentation control also had a similar preliminary approval. So there will be permits required prior to issuing land use permits, but all of those reviews are favorable, no issues. There are a few items that the Planning Commission, or there was discussion at the last meeting, some amendments or things to look at for the site plan. There was discussion about traffic calming or narrowing the entrance option at Cinnamon Ridge, looking at a tree buffer on the easterly line. Haven't seen anything on those, but I assume the applicant's planning to speak to those. Also looking for a cost estimate for the landscape plan, and that's something that can be submitted. I would think that wouldn't hold you up from approving this. We would get a cost estimate and make sure that landscape performance guarantee was in place. So I'd say really the biggest item that we're looking for would be the road commission, and which is great that we've got Wayne, the engineer here, Wayne Schoonover is here. But the road commission indicated that a traffic assessment would be necessary for this development, and so the applicant has provided that. Wayne has a copy and can speak to that. But my understanding, from a layperson, is that a traffic assessment is less complicated, less complex than a traffic impact study. So road commission felt that the traffic assessment should be sufficient for this development.
Okay, and I've got a couple questions along the way, but I'll turn it over to the commission. Any questions for Claire right out of the blocks? Okay, and maybe before we jump into the applicant itself, can I ask a question tied to that traffic assessment first and foremost? Because I know we just got this today, and it's a little bit to review, but I'd like to, and Wayne, is it? Could you come up to the lectern, please? I just wanted to get a little clarity right out of the blocks for everybody, because this was a major point of contention at the last meeting. So, who are you and where do you live?
Yes. Wayne Schoonover, I'm County Highway Engineer for the Grand Traverse County Road Commission. I live at 406 Southeast Street in Boyne City,
Okay,
so I commute a little bit.
sure.
It's a great job, great people. I'm happy to do that.
So Wayne, question for you, and this is just for education of myself and the commission if they don't already know, but with the assessment, there was a lot of just, understanding and wanting buy-in from the authority locally as to how this impact or how this development could impact that corridor, but more importantly, access onto that road. And we maybe just got this today, but you've seen this prior to today, I presume?
I get this afternoon.
Okay, you've just, okay. So basically what we're talking about is, we're relying on you, no pressure, but we're relying on you and your feedback to kind of educate us in terms of how this development will impact the region, because as you know, this is a major corridor and one that we assume will probably see more pressure throughout the years. But in doing so, we're just kind of, can you educate us as to what goes into this and kind of what some of the recommendations, good, bad, or indifferent, could be based upon the information that you've received?
Yeah. So to start off with, an assessment is kind of an impact study light. So we're not going to go into asking them to do a full description of the project and be taking into account all of the other geographical and regional components that would normally go into this. Because of the location where we're at, We're outside of kind of the urbanized area a little bit, and it is pretty straightforward. It's a lot of, single-family residential or farming in the area. There are other developments, and actually the Cinnamon Ridge that it joins into. So for us, the connectivity to the public road system is pretty straightforward. It has nice sight distance, so we're not really concerned about that. What we typically will do when a lot of these answers are already taken care of on first glance and review is we do want to be looking at what are the traffic data, the traffic generation from the number of units, and the direction that those are going to be going to. Again, fairly straightforward. Most of this is going to be going north on 3 Mile. But we do have where we're tying into Cinnamon Ridge, so we need that area to be kind of looked at as well. This assessment does do that. I'm not going to, I don't quibble on, they're looking at what, 24, 25%, kind of coming from there. And that seems fairly logical. And so we want to be seeing then, based on those numbers, how that impacts with your typical traffic generation for your left turns, your AM and your PM peaks, and what is that going to affect onto the roadway, so that we can then look at that and say, all right, do we need a center left turn lane? Do we need a bypass lane? What type of length do we need on tapers or entrance and exit lanes going in and out of there?
Gotcha. That's helpful. And one other thing that came up throughout the conversation, the last go-round, was that connection to Cinnamon Ridge. And this is just like food for thought, I think, for us, because it's come up so many times and you're here. Is there a preference or a best practice for ways that you can improve safety between those two or impact between the two? There was just a lot of conversation, like, are people from this development going to go through Cinnamon Ridge to bypass, the access on the 3 Mile? Are there things that we can consider? There's been options as far as like putting up a gate, putting up speed bumps, narrowing that access just physically down to a minimum to control and keep people moving slowly. Can you speak to some of that, or am I just making this up?
Nope, no speed bumps.
Okay.
Like them. They're a problem come wintertime, unless you're pulling those things, then you're creating, identified stresses in the pavements. We don't like that. The design that you have here, as well as when I look further into Cinnamon Ridge and some of these other developments, I think is your greatest tool for traffic calming. And that is nice curved roads that really aren't providing a straightaway. Those straightaways, that's what people will drive at a condition that they're comfortable with. Obviously, when we drive the same route every day, we get more comfortable, so we tend to drive a little bit faster. But with newer people coming into the area or newer drivers, they're all going to drive at a speed that they are comfortable with. That's how we get our speed zones all identified and established throughout the area. But nice curved roads with minimal amounts of roads that are straight through is going to be your biggest deterrent for people trying to kind of cut through your development. Now, because this does have, for part of the Cinnamon Ridge development, kind of a closer direction, you will get, I think logically, you'll get some of that traffic in that area coming through here. That's not necessarily a bad thing, and in fact, and that's what the assessment is taken into account. The best thing out there, though, is always trying to get people to realize that if you don't want people speeding in front of your own house, don't speed in front of theirs. Let's all try to be good neighbors here on that. And, so the designs here, I prefer them. I have difference of opinions with other engineers around, and some like the nice blocks, and I'm not a big fan of those. I think these are much more aesthetically pleasing and become more valuable because it does it does create that situation to where people have to pay attention. You're going around a curve, you're going to be going slower, you're going to be watching.
Got it. Okay. Selfishly, I'm out of questions. Does anybody else have questions for Wayne while we got his ear? And we'll get a.
Yeah, I guess I need to know what this says.
Yeah,
I don't know how to read it.
and we'll get a.
Read it right now.
Yeah, we'll get a report back from you. I say, and what does a turnaround time look like for your office in terms of getting us feedback for the
We'll
applicant?
probably be able to, within a couple weeks here, be able to
Okay.
get this back.
Gotcha.
I want to make sure that we get this out before I'm off to my last conference for the season. This is just big conference season right now.
Yep, yep. Okay, thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, and we've got representatives of the applicant are here as well.
Good evening, everyone. Doug Mansfield, Mansfield Land Use Consultants, 830 Cottage View Drive, Suite 201, Traverse City, Michigan. Thanks so much for being here on this project tonight. So we had our public hearing. Unfortunately, I'm very disappointed because everybody wanted to talk to the road commission, and we've got almost no one. So that's a tragedy, frankly. And I'm going to pose to the chair that he ask if there's any other improvements in the future along 3 Mile Road, if you could ask after we're done of the road commission. Okay?
Good call.
Yeah, thanks. So, we went through, as Claire said, the various agencies have looked at this and approved it for the use. The road commission had some geometric extensions of the entrance, the boulevard entrance, and along with the tapers. Nothing major. I think they went from 50 to 75 feet or something like that, but pretty typical. We can go in a little bit into the intersection and the traffic assessment. There's not a whole lot that goes into it, but that's all they requested for the project approval. I think the interesting things, and again, I'm kind of disappointed nobody's here, is that we did incorporate not at the connection to Cinnamon Ridge, a tabletop, okay, a full-width tabletop, which is an extended speed bump. That's a bad compromise, but basically, we're raising the road about 6 inches in about 4 or 5 feet. That'll run for about 15, 16 feet and then go back down, so it's not a speed bump, and it'll have the appropriate signage with that as a hazard, okay? That's all on the private road side of this, so not the county road side. And then on each side of those, we're going to have a sign, basically, opposing signs that said, you're entering Cinnamon Ridge, please respect us, to put people on notice, vice versa coming into ours. We are also pledging with this revised site plan that we will install 6 spruce trees, okay, at the desired location of the owners on the adjacent 2 lots that are on that. So and it's similar to what we did on Bayview. Let's put them where you think you need them from your dining room table, okay? And that's actually, in the profile of the road, that's actually a high point there, so it's a good point to have that on the adjacent land. So I think we've done about as much as we can, besides creating walls and shades and these kind of things, but and approach that proactively. Beyond that, I will get briefly on the analysis we got. Again, it's difficult with all the agencies. Everybody was on vacations, different weeks, and these kind of things through spring break. But we did get an appropriate review from the road commission. So we provided them the intersection site distance details and measurements for the speeds and the turning movements. We meet those, and I'll say, while it seems that 3 miles is a fairly soft, vertically changing road, it can be challenging even on that road. So, but the location of our entrance met that. Then we go into the actual assessment, and as Wayne said, there's a lot of MDOT and a lot of engineering, years and generations of engineering that have gone into a set of standard calculations for, again, not looking at all the impacts of the road for the length of it, because again, this is a use by right. In Michigan, with a use by right, you can really only assess the developer to correct improvements in front of his on his frontage, okay? And we know from being residents here, there's some hiccups with Potter Road and Garfield and 3 Miles in the greatest intersection, and Potter and Garfield isn't the greatest intersection, but attributing, what this is more about is this project going to infringe on the traffic that fronts it, okay? So basically what we did was we took the road commission, as part of their mix of the fixes, had done traffic counts, okay? We took those traffic counts. Then we're allowed through the ITE trip generation manuals to add an additional, basically, growth factor through the years. If there was some other massive project in the route of this or in the area, we would take that in, but really the schools are a big impact and driving force of the traffic on 3 Mile and Hammond, but they've been here for years, so they're in the traffic counts. So we take those, we add about 2.5% of growth off over the last 2.5 years. We also plug in, and that includes filling out, or the filling out of existing lots, that weren't built. Then we look at, there's a calculation that provides how many of the expected trips from our houses, and again, we included about 25% of Cinnamon Ridge flowing through this development are going to turn left, and there's allowances for that. Traffic engineers don't really care about right-hand turns unless it's a conflict with an adjacent use. So it's really all about the left-hand turns on this. And then it's put into a flow chart, and that's basically what you have, an MDOT standard flow chart that says, this is your existing traffic, this is your, the volume expected at build-out, which we took the build-out from day one, so we kind of forced that to be worse than what it will be, because this is a 2 or 3 year project. And on the one chart with the blue line, you'll see, we're well to the left of that blue line, and you could basically almost double the amount of volume on the existing road, because our number won't change, our turning movement won't change, but what will change is the growth along 3 Mile, the volume of traffic through the years, and we could probably grow another 30-40% before it becomes an issue. The same thing on the 2-way for the passing flare, the analysis for the passing flare. We're calculating 34 trips in the peak hour will turn left on there. That's using the 3,000 trips per day, 3,100 projected. And then our number will not change, but you could slide that 3,115 over almost to 6,000 before you would need that passing flare turning lane. Now, ultimately, your local jurisdiction, your road commission in this case, has the say-so. They are the roads. If they see something that is special about this area, that's what they're going to look at now and say, well, this is great for a chart, but we live here and we know this, and certain people do weird things at this intersection, so therefore we're going to make you do X, okay? But so far it's been fairly objective. This is a lot, again, of what I say is theory about this. Again, someone doing some weird use to the south of this that we have no idea what it is could change the whole dynamic of what happens on here. It's interesting to note that the counts south of Hammond Road, are in the 30,000, 3,500 range max through the years. And that includes timings when some other road may have been closed, the parkway may have been closed or something like that, and it changed a significant travel movement, or maybe they were building a school or building Hammond Road. Something happened in there. But it's around 3,500 north of Hammond Road on 3 Mile. That doubles, okay, to more of the 7,000, 8,000 trips per day. North of South Airport to the Parkway on 3 Mile almost doubles again. So you can see how that traffic's moving. And of course, the Parkway is double 3 Mile, okay? So you can see how that movement is coming back and forth. But you get out here, 3,000 to 3,500 trips per day on a county primary road is not a lot of traffic. And I remember because we worked on, Carlisle Road and all the trips per day that we were calculating on that so many years ago, so when they moved that intersection. So that's basically what you have here. I think we've countered what the one thing about when we take in traffic calming movements, you can't forget about when we talk about narrowing roads, and that's called a chicane, when we narrow it down and then it moves over. Fire departments, we have to have the full width of the pavement, okay? We have to have that 20 feet. As soon as you're at 2 lanes, you're not calming any traffic. So then we can look at speed humps and traffic circles, kind of like around the state hospital area. The ones at the state hospital are a disappointment to the city because they're not high enough to slow people down, or make people use them. It's a pretty little decoration in the middle of the road, but it's really not effective unless you bring it out of there. And of course then what happens if you bring an element out of the ground like that, you can't plow it. So you've got ice patches all over it. So we found that the tabletop is probably one of the best elements. And again, you're not going to slow everyone out. Some people think it's a challenge. But at least you're saying you've entered a new place, okay? And that's on our road to maintain and keep clear. So we're looking forward to approval. We want to get started, but we understand where the process is and what you have to do. And Kyle O'Grady is here with me tonight. Anything else, like Claire mentioned, the landscape budgeting and that kind of thing usually comes after, so.
The only thing that I don't think you touched on that I did see in the staff report was tied to the joint maintenance agreement.
So that's a joint maintenance agreement. I'm surprised it's not in the condo docs.
It is.
Okay,
Is it?
okay,
Yeah,
they found
that
it.
was,
So, yeah,
Okay.
that's pretty boilerplate stuff, yeah, so.
Okay. It was just an item that was in the
Yep.
staff report. I'm just,
It's red, it should have been black. I'm
okay, okay. I'm just reading
Oh,
what
don't
I'm
give me
reading.
credit, give Kyle and the attorney credit for that one.
Yep, okay, okay.
So, Kyle, anything to add, sir?
Oh, he's the attorney? Yeah.
Well, thank you, Doug. Kyle O'Grady, 901 South Garfield Avenue, Suite 202. Thank you to you all as well. We're excited to have gotten to this point. Feel like we've exerted a lot of effort into it, and we appreciate your guys' input throughout the process. Like Doug is saying, it would have been nice to have a couple more people here, but we had some great conversations after our meeting last month, and I think ultimately some excited, for as much as they could be neighbors. So we're looking forward to that. And yeah, as we, hope to see some light towards, going to the township board and hopefully getting an approval here. I'm also, in my free time, a licensed realtor with RE/MAX Bayshore here locally, and every meeting they're gnawing at me saying, when are the houses coming? When are the houses coming? So would really be excited to get underway on this one here and be able to bring some much-needed housing to the community. So be happy to answer any more questions, but appreciate you guys' time.
I have one question. Why did we change the name? I'm just curious.
That's a great question.
Just got to know.
That's a great question.
She's a realtor.
I am. Gotcha. Just curious.
Short answer is, we were talking as a family and said, hey, I think we found something better. We all kind of throw names into a hat. And my brother threw a name into the hat that happened to be my mother's first name, Victoria. And my dad and I and my brother picked it out of the hat. And we said, well, that certainly beats what we currently have for it.
I like
So
that. That's awesome.
that was the reason for the name change. So
Very cool.
we're excited about that.
I actually like it. I was like, what made them just all out of the blue change?
Yep, 100%. And then I think I was talking to Dave on the condo documents and explained that same reason. He goes, well, now it has to succeed, right? So
Right.
now we've got some skin in it,
That's
so we
awesome.
got to make mom proud. So that was the reason for it.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Wonderful.
I got a couple of questions for you. More catching up since I wasn't here last.
Sure.
As being a condo setup that you have, is there, because I didn't see anything in there about, are you planning on having a look to the overall project, that there's some type of symmetry to how it's going to look? And then the part of that question is this just property locations that people build the house, or do you have some idea as to what type of houses you're going to have?
Sure. Great question, and I think I can answer more specifically, but broadly, this exact presentation that I'm giving to you guys here tonight and last month is what we've done as a company for the past 30 years. So we're not only the land developer, but also the home builder. as well. So that speaks to going in, putting in all the infrastructure, and actually being the company to build all of the houses. So throughout our progress, we rely on ourselves to continue the congruency, continue the success of the project. So that's kind of the general scope of it, and then the more specific answer to that question is, these homes are likely going to be similar to what we'll find next door in Cinnamon Ridge. So, potentially some ranches, likely two-story homes, all similar throughout the 101 homes. Architecture, different flares to make them feel one of one throughout, but 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom likely, anywhere from, high 1,000, maybe 1,900, maybe to low 3,000 square feet. So throwing in an average dart at that, 2,800 square foot, 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 2-story home.
Okay, great. The other thing is, just curiosity, that square that's in the upper, right-hand piece, that's some piece of property that's sitting there right now, I take it?
Are you talking about right up here?
No, I'm sorry, upper left, my other right.
Upper left.
Upper left,
This here?
yeah.
Yep, so these are adjacent property owners here. Yep, so it just so turned out that this parcel came this way, came to the north here, so this was all one parcel, actually with an additional 40 acres to the south that the sellers wanted to hold on to. So this is a parcel here, this is a parcel here, this is a parcel here, to my knowledge, understandably, all with structures already constructed on them.
Oh,
So
okay.
3 Mile here, our entrance here, and then this simply reflects adjacent property.
Okay, because I was just curious why there wasn't some provision for, entryway into that property, but it's already developed, so I got you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, as I said, I'm catching up on some of these
Yeah,
things.
no, fair enough.
And there is, I did reach out to our consultants, Giffords Webster, that are helping with the zoning ordinance rewrite, just because there's some ambiguity in our zoning ordinance, because you do need to provide for a connection to a redevelopment site. And so I think I counted like 12 different parcels that are 10 acres or more surrounding the site. And so it doesn't make practical sense to preserve a connection to each of those, but it would be helpful to have some guidance in the ordinance. Right now, they're providing a future connection to the south, down to Ike. There's an 80-acre parcel that's owned by TCAPS that's,
No, I just saw that big square sitting there, and I'm saying that's right
Yeah.
along, what is it, 3 Mile?
Yeah.
And it would seem that it would be logical there'd be some connection, but if it's already there, it's already there. The other thing, too, is I noticed that, what are you going to do for lights? You're not planning on any lights in the area? For street lights or anything of that nature?
Maybe, have we, Doug can speak to that.
Primarily, when people get out in the rural areas, we're not looking for streetlights, okay, unless it's a higher speed road. But the coach lights and such on the garages, we found that that's plenty to illuminate what's needed to be, but
That's okay, I was just questions, I just noticed that it had nothing about any lighting, that's all. Okay, thank you.
We prefer it dark in the rural areas.
Our dark sky.
And you're looking to get started like as soon as possible?
Yes, yep. Yep, we would jump on it right away.
Kyle, just for reference, could you maybe point out, and this is more for Paul's earlier question about the look or the unit type or unit mix, could you name off like anywhere else regionally, like if we wanted to take a little field trip or go, or do a little Google search?
Yep, I would drive through Cinnamon Ridge next
Oh.
door.
Okay,
Yep,
got it,
drive through there.
okay.
quality of the product and commitment to the land, you can go out to the Peninsula Shores, which is probably one of the most sensitive pieces of land, and quality projects going on, and they've committed to that over the last 7 years, is it now, 8 that we've been a part of that community?
Summer will be 9, so, yeah. So, yeah.
So, but out on Bursaw and Smoky Hollow area.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so appreciate the input from Doug there. Yeah, speaking towards the development as a whole, the road, the infrastructure, the houses, as well as a little bit of that architecture as well, on the north side of Borsa, about 12 miles out, Old Mission Peninsula. So,
Okay. Thank you, we may come back to you. but we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. I know that, we're awaiting kind of finalization of this traffic assessment from the road commission. So to me, that feels like, we delay this about a month in terms of actually taking action. But I just want to flush out with anybody, is there anything else that comes to mind that we need clarity on?
I lean more towards, can it be approved based on road commission sign off in a week or two, so they're not having to come back here and then having to go back? Because based on what I see, you lay that on an aerial and look at Cinnamon Ridge and all that, I mean, it looks like it belongs to part of it. I mean, as far as the road layout, flow, stuff like that. And it seems like they've done the necessary stuff. And as long as the road commission signs off in a week or two, me personally, I'm happy with it.
That's what I was going to ask you, Claire. Is it necessary to wait that long? Can we do conditional?
I think especially given the fact that the township board has to approve this,
Right.
that we can.
'Cause that'll be another month.
We can certainly take it to the township board, and assuming that the road commission has reviewed it by then.
So is that just a condition? We make it a condition?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm happy to entertain anything, because I agree with you. I mean, I think we've kind of flushed out all of the questions that we had from the last meeting, sans final review, but no, it's a great point. I think that's a great recommendation.
Well, it's spring, people want to get going on building, and there's no time to waste.
So Claire, what do we, what would be the appropriate motion? Is it to send it to the township board for approval, subject to all these conditions, or what's the right way to phrase this?
I think you could recommend, so the conditions that are listed in your packet, numbers 1 through 6, specifically state recommendation to Board of Trustees is based on the civil site plan. We should probably update the date, because we've got one dated February 21st, and I believe it looks like we're reviewing an updated site plan. So it'd be recommendation that it depicts the private road connections. The applicant will be responsible for paving the road to the public road to Saffron Circle. Applicant will submit a cost estimate for planting plus labor and provide that as a performance guarantee. All construction traffic is limited to the entrance off 3 Mile Road. Recommendation to the Board of Trustees is subject to obtaining all the necessary permits. And I would also include the 2 additional conditions that are on this site plan, which is the tabletop and the 6 spruce trees.
And subject to the Grand Traverse County Road Commission's acceptance of the traffic assessment.
Exactly, yep, that sounds good.
Do I need to
So
repeat
is
all
that-
that?
Is that at number 7?
I got it.
You got it. Leslie got it.
7.
Okay.
Okay.
I make that motion.
Oh, come on, we want to hear you say the whole thing.
yeah.
Come on, Carl.
I wasn't
Okay.
exactly sure.
So number
Okay.
7 would be the road commission accepting the traffic assessment, and then 8 would be maybe referring back to that amended site plan with the tabletops
Tabletop
and
and
the
6
6 spruce trees.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
So we're clear on the motion. We're updating condition number 1 with the updated date of the plan. We're adding those 2 conditions that Claire just stated, including tabletop, road, and spruce trees to the site plan, as well as final road commission sign off for the traffic assessment. So, that being the case, all those in favor, well, we've got a motion by Carl, seconded by Rhonda, thank you. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries, so this will be moved to the Township Board at their next available meeting, which is,
That will probably be, I believe it's May 9th.
okay. Okay, because they have a special one, but this won't be on that, so, okay. So stand by to stand by.
Thanks everyone so much for all your commitment.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Appreciate you working with us. Thanks, everybody. Okay. And our last new business item is an amendment or a considered amendment to our parking standards tied into the zoning code. And I will kick it over to Claire for introduction and kind of give us an update as to where we're at on that discussion.
Okay.
Wayne, thank you for coming, by the way.
You're welcome anytime you need me.
We're going to talk about Fairwood Drive next. Don't worry about it, we'll get in the weeds.
Right?
Don't leave out Munson Avenue.
Acrylic.
Take care.
So.
Sorry, Claire.
I appreciated the planning commission's input at the last meeting, looking for more flexibility related to parking, because I think that more flexibility while still maintaining kind of the goals around preservation of open space, but also, some level of organization and structure and management of vehicles. So I took the draft language, I took it back to Giffords Webster. We also had a discussion with the zoning ordinance subcommittee since the meeting with the planning commission. So the zoning ordinance subcommittee reviewed the parking standards, provided some more input and insight on those. And so what we came back with is what's presented before you. And I'm happy because I think it's got some simplicity to it while still providing some flexibility and consideration, both for planning and zoning department as well as the planning commission, to take some different unique site conditions into consideration related to allowances for multiple uses, flexibility in making determinations for uses not listed. That was kind of an issue we got into when we were reviewing a marina use, and we had to revert back to hotel because it specifically said you had to find you had to, make a designation. Some allowances for reductions in parking requirements based on a parking study, shared parking agreements. So there's a land banking option that was an idea provided by Giffords Webster, which I think makes a lot of sense, to not build the parking until it's necessary, but providing space for it. And bicycle parking, some reductions with proximity to the TART trail or other bicycle facilities. And then also flexibility in paving requirements if stormwater requirements are met. And this is more for some of the established existing sites that are looking for change of use or other site plan review, not requiring paving when, as long as engineer reviews and is comfortable with the stormwater and the management on site.
Okay, no, and I think reading through it, it was interesting to see. I liked, and I could kind of pick up on some of the flavor of trying to be a little more lenient, no doubt. So I think you nailed it in pretty much most of the places. I did appreciate also some of the connotations to multi-mixed parking solutions as well, with inclusion of bicycles and consideration for that rather than actual asphalt. So I think there's quite a bit of flexibility. That being said, thoughts from the commission?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's great. I think offering flexibility to the developer is great. I probably lean too far one way. I'd probably just set maximums and call it good, but that's fine. I'm happy with this. I think it does, and I like the fact that we are deferring, or not deferring, but at least putting some of the onus on the planning department to decide what's right with the developer as they're going through this. I think, as I've stated before, I think the developers know their product and what they need for parking, and we don't need to keep paving everything with minimums. I guess the one thing I saw when reading through it, and I don't know if this is possible, but I would love to see some incentive, especially not so much in the residential side, but in the regional business district, to try to accomplish some of the aims that we think we're going to have down there. And I don't know if there's a way to incentivize developers or proposals that are before us to, almost leave a little bit of space close to the roadway where we think we might have wider sidewalks or trails, or maybe we want some trees planted. I don't know if that's a possibility, and maybe it's more appropriate if we ever do get funded to do the study of the regional business district, and maybe some recommendations would come out of that. But I would love to see somebody trade some parking for a wider trail, because if we ever hope to have people going up and down there instead of driving around at the next corner, that would be the way to do it, I think. But as far as this goes, I'm happy with this as far as, for this amendment. I think it's good.
And I will mention the amendments that we're looking at for the entire zoning ordinance rewrite. You're going to see that we will have specific parking standards associated with a list of uses. It's not as an exhaustive list as what we currently have, because right now we say like roller rink, this amount, now it's going to be much more general uses, retail, service, residential. But we are we've got minimums, and the minimums are the maximums. So you can't build more parking than what is specified in the zoning ordinance is the direction that we're drafting, unless you come to the Planning Commission with specified data. So one example is like the Giffords-Webster worked with a community that had a call center. So it was a really small space, but they had, 80 people working in there, and so they needed more parking. So we are planning to have like the minimums be the maximums, so that we're not overbuilding parking unless there's a documented reason for it.
Okay, great. It's good explanation.
Yeah, I didn't see any issues with this either. Give the business owner the flexibility.
Last question I've got is tied to an issue that's come up a couple of times on some of our more narrow parcels, which is stormwater management allocation and parking. Meaning, and this is kind of why I was asking about any like creative stormwater management practices built into that site. And I didn't see anything directly, and maybe there is, but if there was a way that we could encourage folks to do, like, I'm just thinking of like permeable pavers or even like a green parking lot, so that basically, they're planning landscaping with pavers throughout. You literally go mow your driveway. It's a thing. But it also doubles as stormwater management practices, so that for snow piles, I'm channeling my inner Mindy here. If you had additional like snow capacity, that would be a way to kind of solve for both, without all the hardscape being a requirement. I'm not saying that we need to change anything right now, but I think in the end draft, if that's just like a note or something that they could take into consideration, that would be kind of an interesting way to encourage folks to do stuff like that, rather than pave everything. I know you don't want to pave everything in your path, but you know what I'm saying. Maybe there's a way that we can accomplish both without penalizing somebody.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely an opportunity to, and we were just discussing this recently amongst staff, but update the stormwater ordinance to allow for some more green infrastructure and flexibility. But we're going to have to make sure that there's maintenance tied to that, because the permeable pavers and others, they quickly become impermeable without regular maintenance. But I do think that that's a great opportunity in the more intensive areas of the township to allow, space that's not just used for retention basins and parking lots.
Right, right. Any other feedback?
I have one question, Claire. If, when we have parking and you're talking about minimums per use, will be laid out in the ordinance, does that differentiate, like, would a fractional ownership thing, like down in the regional business district, would it have like a similar thing as an apartment, say, out here on Hammond, based on that ownership? Mm-hmm. So they would be the same?
It'd be the same standards.
Same minimum.
But then on US 31, given proximity to, transit and other things, there could be some reductions.
You could have the flexibility?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But there'd be the same base standard for each use regardless of the district.
Okay.
If there's no other questions, then what's before us this evening is a recommendation to set a public hearing in the upcoming month or so, for consideration. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to, let's see, what is it?
ZA 1
To schedule a public hearing on zoning amendment 1-23 without edits.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion for setting a public hearing, we'll say in April,
I don't know,
Or
when
is-
is this going to be in front of the?
as appropriate.
That'll be May 2nd.
Oh,
Would be
May-
appropriate.
This
Thank
is
you.
April.
Thank you. Long day. Yes, thank you.
Honest.
Setting a public hearing for our May Planning Commission meeting with a motion by Carl and seconded by Paul. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. So we'll look for that coming up, and then we'll get a chance for public hearing to take its course. We'll maybe hear from folks or maybe not. We'll see. And I think that was our last element of new business. I think that brings us back to public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to step up.
you.
Is it okay if it's on the same issue, or should I wait?
Sure. Anything you want at this point.
Allie, or Alexandra Werfel, 1865 Maple Drive in East Bay. I appreciate this conversation, and it's very helpful to hear everyone's perspective. Also, somewhat exciting to hear that the stormwater might change and others might not have to come up so high. In terms of the parking, I think all of what you guys have discussed makes a lot of sense, and businesses typically know their demand and kind of have an expectation on how busy they'll be and what they'll need. And the maximum comment kind of refers back to Acme, who has the maximum standard compared to East Bay. I think the biggest aspect on considering road right-of-way and more green space on the road, an incentive there could be to include that in your green space requirement, since it doesn't count right now. Businesses aren't really incentivized to keep the green space since it doesn't count into your calculations. And I think the other thing, no one really wants these huge parking lots, but the biggest driver that I've seen in my much limited experience in other developers in the area is it really comes down to Metro Fire and giving fire truck access. And so if you only have one access drive or one entrance, you have to basically almost pave your whole lot to get that U-turn circle. So any flexibility there or any considerations, bringing different size trucks based on buildings, stuff like that could be something, but that's been, at least in my experience, the reason for the bigger parking lots. Other than that, yeah, I'm looking forward to the next meeting, and hopefully more people have comments, but I think it's all very positive, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's it for public comment. Any updates from planning commissioners?
I actually have something.
All right.
This did, well, it's not really, it's going back to the minutes, and it kind of didn't feel right when we were doing it, and I should have said something, but it didn't hit me until I picked up the land use. But Mansfield is spelled wrong in all the minutes. Sorry.
Thought you were going to say that you attended a great training or something.
No, I didn't. I haven't had time to do that. I barely remember to be here tonight. No, I just it was all funny because I was looking at that, I'm like, it is Mansfield. And then I'm going into the minutes and I'm like, it's.
Oh, you're right.
It's Manfield and,
I did it on purpose with Doug.
well, he didn't notice. And it's his name.
I can
So,
fix that without an amendment.
anyway, that's my update.
Thank you.
Thanks, Renee. You should call me tomorrow.
Okay, and just for clarity again, May 2nd, put it on your calendars. This is our next regular meeting, and you've got a meeting tomorrow on the zoning ordinance updates, and April 26th again. And with that,
Duck 30.
Oh, dark 30.
love it. And with that, at 7:50,